Greetings! My name is Z, I also go by Mickey, and in this video I'm sharing the books that I have on my shelf that might have help someone to design their mathematics education research study. So if you already have data, or there's a data set that's been provided to you, then you're going to be working backwards from the data because certain data is only, can only answer certain questions. Most people work in the reverse. They think of what they want to know, and then they say, you know what, this is the research question I want to ask. And then they say, what kind of data will answer that question? And then they design a study that will get that kind of data and that will answer that question. But if you are being provided with the data set, then what you really want to understand is, what kind of data do I have? So there are two broad categories. There's qualitative and there's quantitative data. So you can have one or the other or a mixture. And so whatever type of data that you have, qualitative data is just data that is a numerical format. So maybe you have test scores and you're going to be running some kind of statistical analysis on those test scores. Or maybe you have heights, or maybe you have GPA measures, or maybe you have heart rates. These things are numbers. Those are qualitative data. And so you're not going to be doing document analysis, for example, on those numbers because they're just numbers. Now the numbers come from somewhere. So sometimes they're calibrated and they're like literally numbers, and sometimes they're extracted from qualitative data like via coding methods and survey data and stuff like that. But the point is, you need to think, okay, first question, is it qualitative or is it quantitative? Like, what's the nature of my data? If you're in a hurry, you don't have much time, then I would say, look at this book, because this book does the qualitative versus quantitative thing for you, just to get you initiated. Okay, if I'm doing qualitative, these are the types of questions I'd ask. If I'm doing quantitative, these are the types of questions I can ask, and this is the type of analysis I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have some kind of statistical approach or what have you. And this will get you there quickly as far as the qualitative versus quantitative thing. And if you're in a hurry and you need to go into a little bit more detail than this, then evaluating research articles, even though it's not well reviewed on Amazon, it's basically like a little encyclopedia and a shorter encyclopedia, not super duper extensive or exhaustive, I should say, but it's like, just the different types of research studies there are, and what kind of analysis can be done, and what kind of it's kind of like you could do a backwards study design. I have my data, and you could look in here. Let me see if I can flip through and find the table of content just to show you. Yeah, so it has examples of basically how to evaluate them. If you went through and read these, then you could learn that, oh, if I have a two-condition experimental study, that involved that type of data and that type of analysis, and that's the kind of data that I have. So you can, if you were trying, and here we are, quasi-experimental study. So this book can also help you if you already have a data set to kind of figure out quickly what kind of study you might do. This book was not as... I found it a little bit dense. It's a textbook. It was recommended by my university. I didn't get as much help out of it. Maybe that was because I was a first year when I read it and I just didn't get it. This book is phenomenal, and I have attached a PDF to share an excerpt of it, and it does like a data mining table, and it says, okay, if you're asking this type of question, then this is the type of data you're looking at, and this is so and so. It's in a table format, so you could kind of work backwards from there and say, oh, this type of question is answered with this type of data, with this type of analysis. It's just a chart that you could kind of use as a guideline for a sample topic. Math specifically, if that's an adverb. This book here is the one that's out right now. The year is 2013 when I'm making this video, and perhaps helpful. I mean, it's the one that we all go to because it's the one that's out. And I'm not saying anything against any of the people in there. Just as far as research design, I mean, I learned a lot about how people conduct studies, but I didn't learn that much about how to design my study from it. And maybe that was just me. It is very useful, super duper expensive, so just flip through it, and you could use it like a catalog. You don't have to read it. And the other thing I was going to say is I've gone on Amazon to try to find something like this, but more useful for me in my situation. And there is a book online, something like New Mathematics Education Research, The Frontier, something like that. If you put Frontier and New Mathematics Education Research into Amazon.com, that book will come up. It's yellow, and I did find it helpful. The part that I could browse through and see. I just didn't have any more time or money to go through yet another, beyond these that are here. The last thing I'll say, this book wouldn't fit on the shelf. This book right here is super duper useful. It may also help you quickly as well, because if you're going to be doing a qualitative or mixed method study, meaning you don't just have quantitative data like stuff that's numbers like test scores or whatever, but you have documents or interviews or what have you, qualitative data, things that you have to analyze and talk about with words, then this book right here is super duper useful. It has a ton of coding methods, and it discusses somewhat, and that's not the point of it, but to some degree, the different methods that go along with the coding methods. So there are coding methods, and then there are study design methods, like methodology, I guess. And this book, I mean, you could go through the index. You go through the index back here, and let's see if I can find it. And it would discuss some, like, survey research in conjunction with the codes. So that's pretty useful. Survey research going along with attribute, magnitude, structural values, provisional coding. That might help you design your study if you know it's qualitative or mixed methods. Mixed methods just meaning a mixture of qualitative and quantitative. So, I mean, you can get into the specifics. I never did do the qualitative study, but I did grab, these from class. Case study research, if you know you're going to be doing a case study, these are some good books. Quantitative interviewing, let me see. Trying to make sure, participant observation. And this book right here was supposed to be helpful, but I got kind of lost in it. It's like, from a principal's point of view, how to evaluate research. And so it's supposed to be very practical in nature and tell a person, how do I look at research? And so from that point of view, it's supposed to help you, like a backwards design kind of way. Maybe it was because it was the first year, I had a really tough time with it. And yes, I think that's all that I had to share. All right, well, happy researching. It's just great to have people in the field, and best of luck.